I lost custody of my daughter on a Tuesday morning, not because I was a bad mother, but because I couldn't compete with a ghost who has suddenly become a millionaire. As the gavel came down, sealing the arrangement that would send my 15-year-old, Ren, to live with her father full-time, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat frozen, my hands clasped so tightly under the table that my knuckles turned white. Neil, the man who had abandoned us before Ren could even lift her head, stood up and buttoned his suit jacket. It was Italian silk, tailored to hide the softness of a life lived in excess. He leaned over the divider, close enough that I could smell the expensive cologne that masked his rot, and whispered 5 words that I will never forget. "Thanks for keeping her fed." He smiled, a predatory satisfied grin, and turned to walk away with his team of high-priced lawyers. He thought he had won a trophy. He thought he had defeated me. But as I watched my daughter walk out behind him, refusing to even look at me, I realized something he didn't. He hadn't won a daughter. He had purchased a stranger. And he had no idea what was coming next. To understand why I let him take her without a scene, we have to go back to the day the silence started. 15 years ago, I came home to an empty apartment and a note on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a tearful apology or a complex explanation. It was a scribbled sentence on the back of a utility bill. "I am not ready for this." That was it. Neil walked out on a 2-week-old baby and a recovering wife because fatherhood was inconvenient. I raised Ren alone. I worked double shifts at a diner, skipped meals so she could have new school shoes, and taught her how to walk, talk, and read without a single child support check. We were a team. We were survivors. For 14 years, I was her hero. Then Neil came back. He didn't return with an apology. He returned with a Porsche. He had started a tech consulting firm, sold it. And suddenly the man who couldn't afford diapers was living in a gated community with a view of the skyline. The seduction was slow and calculated. It started with an Instagram DM to Ren, then a catch-up lunch I foolishly allowed. Then came the gifts. First, it was the latest iPhone, then designer handbags, then promises of a life I could never give her. The turning point was Ren's 15th birthday. I had woken up at 4 a.m. to bake her favorite dark chocolate raspberry cake from scratch. I spent hours piping the frosting, making sure it was perfect. When I walked into the living room to surprise her, she was on her phone, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Dad's picking me up," she said, not even looking at the cake. "He's throwing me a party at his estate. There's going to be a DJ and a caterer." "Ren, we had plans," I said, my voice trembling. "I made your cake." She finally looked up, and the look in her eyes broke me. It wasn't anger, it was pity. "Mom, look at this place." She gestured around our small, clean but worn apartment. "Dad can give me the world. You can barely give me a ride to the mall." She left an hour later. I sat alone in the kitchen, eating a slice of the cake by myself, listening to the silence. The escalation was rapid after that. Neil filed for full custody 2 weeks later. His argument wasn't that I was abusive or negligent. His argument was that he could provide a superior standard of living. In the eyes of the court, my love was less valuable than his swimming pool. But the real knife in the heart wasn't the legal paperwork. It was Ren's testimony. On the day of the hearing, Neil's lawyer, a shark in a pinstripe suit, called Ren to the stand. I watched my daughter, the girl whose scraped knees I had bandaged, whose nightmares I had soothed, walk up to the witness chair. She refused to make eye contact with me. "Ren," the lawyer asked smoothly, "how would you describe your living situation with your mother?" Ren took a breath. I mentally begged her to tell the truth, to talk about our movie nights, our inside jokes, the safety of our home. "It's stifling," she said, her voice steady. "She makes me feel guilty for wanting more. She hates my father because he's successful, and she tries to keep me from him. I just want to be with a parent who can actually support my dreams." It was a script. I knew it was a script. But hearing it come out of her mouth shattered the last piece of hope I was holding on to. Neil's lawyer turned to me with a smug look. No further questions. Then my lawyer stood up. We had a strategy. We had dug into Neil's life, and we found the one thing he was trying to hide. Mr. Neil, my lawyer began, pacing in front of the stand where Neil was now sitting. You've expressed a sudden, intense interest in raising a teenage daughter after 15 years of absence. Can you tell the court about your current wife, Vanessa? Neil shifted in his seat. What does she have to do with this? Is it true, my lawyer continued, holding up a medical document, that your wife is unable to conceive children? And that the prenuptial agreement between you two states that her inheritance of your estate is contingent upon there being an heir in the household? The courtroom went silent. Ren's head snapped up. She looked at her father, confusion clouding her face. Neil's face reddened. That is a private medical matter. It is a matter of motivation, my lawyer pressed. You don't want a daughter, Mr. Neil. You want an heir to secure a trust fund payout. You are using Ren as a placeholder. I looked at Ren. I expected her to run to me. I expected her to see the truth. But Neil was quick. He looked at Ren, his eyes wide with faint sincerity. Ren, honey, don't listen to her. Your mother is desperate. She's making up lies because she's jealous. I love you. Vanessa loves you. We want you. Ren looked from him to me. I was the woman in the cheap blazer who made her do chores and homework. He was the man with the credit card and the promise of freedom. I believe my dad, Ren said coldly. Mom, just stop. You're embarrassing yourself. That was the moment I stopped fighting. My lawyer leaned over, ready to object, ready to drag this out, ready to appeal. We can fix this, she whispered. We can prove he's manipulating her. I looked at Neil, who was glaring at me with pure hatred for exposing his secret. Then I looked at Ren, who looked at me with annoyance. If I fought this, I would force her to come home, and she would hate me for it every single day. She would view me as the jailer and him as the martyr. There was only one way for her to learn. She had to live it. No, I whispered to my lawyer. What? I withdraw, I said, my voice loud enough for the judge to hear. I will not fight the custody arrangement. If she wants to go, let her go. The judge looked surprised. Neil looked relieved. Ren looked shocked. She had expected a war. She had expected me to claw and scream. My surrender confused her. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and looked at the judge. I love my daughter more than anything in this world. And because I love her, I will not force her to be where she doesn't want to be. But let the record show, I am always here. That was when Neil leaned over and whispered his "thanks for keeping her fed" comment. I didn't respond. I walked out of the courthouse, got into my 10-year-old sedan, and drove home. The silence in the apartment was deafening. I didn't pack her room. I left everything exactly where it was. The posters, the unmade bed, the books. I knew this wasn't the end. The first month was radio silence. I saw photos on social media. Ren on a boat. Ren with a new wardrobe. Ren at a private school. She looked like a stranger, polished and posed. But by the third month, the cracks started to show. I received a text on a Tuesday night. Just 3 words. Are you awake? I called immediately. She didn't answer. 2 weeks later, it was a missed call at 1 a.m. I didn't chase her. I didn't beg. I waited. I focused on my work. I got a promotion. I started painting again. I rebuilt the parts of myself I had sacrificed to keep us afloat. I became a person, not just a provider. 6 months after the court date, my phone rang at 11 p.m. It was Ren. Mom? Her voice was small. It sounded like the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. I'm here, Ren, I said, sitting up. Can you pick me up? Where are you? I'm at the gate. The security guard won't let me leave, but I climbed the side wall. I'm at the gas station down the street. I didn't ask questions. I'm on my way. When I pulled up to the gas station, she was sitting on the curb with a trash bag of clothes. She wasn't wearing designer heels. She was wearing her old sneakers and a hoodie. She got into the car and didn't say a word for 10 minutes. I just drove. Finally she broke. You were right. I kept my eyes on the road. About what? Vanessa, she sniffled. She. She treats me like an employee. I have to be dressed a certain way by 8 a.m. I have to appear in all her social media posts, but she doesn't actually talk to me, and Dad is never there. He travels 3 weeks a month. When he is home, he just criticizes my grades or my weight. He told me I was bad for the brand because I got a B in math. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. He didn't want a daughter. He wanted a prop. He wanted to look like a family man for his investors. You were the only one who ever actually wanted me. I reached over and took her hand. I know. He said if I left, he'd cut me off. She sobbed. He said he'd take the car, the phone, the tuition. He said I'd be nothing without him. I squeezed her hand. You were everything before you met him, and you're everything now. We drove home in silence, but it was a comfortable silence. When we walked into the apartment, she went straight to her room. She stood in the doorway, looking at her old posters, her messy bed, the life she had discarded. She turned to me. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Go to sleep, Ren. We'll talk in the morning. The next morning, my doorbell rang. It was Neil. He was furious. His face was red, and he was pounding on the door. I opened it, but I didn't unlock the screen door. She's a minor. He shouted. This is kidnapping. I have full custody. I will have you arrested. I looked at him. I looked at the man who thought money could buy loyalty. She's 16 now, Neil, I said calmly. In this state, at 16, she can choose where she resides if she proves the current environment is hostile. And considering the voicemails you left her last night, threatening to disown her for getting a B. I think the judge will be very interested in hearing about your parenting style. He froze. I cut off her credit cards. She has nothing. She has a mother, I said. And she has a home. 2 things you can't buy. She be back, he sneered. Give it a week without the allowance. She come crawling back. She didn't come back for money, Neil. She came back because she was lonely. And you have a mansion full of people, and you're the loneliest man I know. I closed the door in his face. I locked it. I walked into the kitchen. Ren was sitting at the table, eating the pancakes I had made. She looked tired, but she looked real. She looked like my daughter again. Was that him? She asked, not looking up. Yeah. Is he coming back? No, I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. He's not. Neil tried to fight it for a few weeks, but his vanity was his weakness. He didn't want a public battle about his hostile parenting to leak to his investors. He agreed to a modification. He kept his money. I got my daughter. Ren is 18 now. She's in college, studying social work. She works a part-time job to pay for her books. She doesn't drive a Porsche, she drives my old sedan. Sometimes she talks about those 6 months. She calls it the expensive prison. She learned a hard lesson that year, one I couldn't have taught her with words. She learned that love isn't about what someone can give you, it's about what they are willing to give up for you. Neil has the estate. He has the cars. He has the perfect, infertile trophy wife. But on holidays, on birthdays, and on the quiet Tuesday nights that actually matter, his house is empty. I sit at my small kitchen table, listening to my daughter laugh on the phone in the next room, and I realized I was right to let her go. Because when she came back, she didn't just come back to the apartment. She came back to me. And that was a victory worth losing for.